Welcome back to 7th Circle Gaming. Today we're going to be talking about, if the title of the video wasn't a dead giveaway, we're going to be talking about MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. And here's our disclosures as they always are. Pause the video if you want to read them more closely. Let's move on. First off, we have a couple of screenshots of what the game world looks like from the third person perspective, played with a controller. There's a lot of stuff on the lower right hand corner of the screen, a fair amount on the lower left, and a mini map in the center. And then let's move on, and we're going to show off the in-cockpit first-person view of a similar mission. This one being played with a keyboard, because it doesn't have the little icon in the center of the screen that indicates that it's being played with a gamepad. And that's going to bring us on to how the game rates for immersion and how it tries to do immersion. As we just saw, the game employs both a first and a third person perspective at various times throughout the game. Say wandering around the ship, that's all done in first person. Playing through missions on planets, that's done either in the cockpit view or it's done in an over-the-shoulder view. Both are usable, but in my playthroughs of the game, it is somewhat easier to, or it did seem easier, to play with the over-the-shoulder view, third-person perspective, in other words, than the in-cockpit view. The game also provides attempts to immerse players in its game world with a fair amount of agency. Just about everything on those vehicles can be customized. Color, the name of the mech, and the various weapons that are on the mech can all be customized to suit a particular mission or player preference. There are some rules that are going to provide guidelines for what can and cannot be done, but there is a lot of freedom there. The game also attempts to immerse players in the game world with challenge. Make no mistake, this is not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, and the combat is particularly immersive. So the game is earning a 10 out of 15. For immersion, it has a fair amount of visual interest on the ship. The combat is very immersive, and it provides players with a fair amount of agency to define their mercenary company and their mechs to their own desires. So then, there are really no options for difficulty as such in the game. The missions are going to have a difficulty rating of 1 through 5, and that's about it. There are some menu options in the settings menu that can make the game more or less difficult. So if the game is being something overly challenging, do take a look in the settings menu and see if there are some options that might make the game, well, a little bit more approachable than others, than it currently is. Now, either being played on a keyboard or with a gamepad, there are a fair amount of key commands to remember. The basics, yes, are obviously fairly simple: forward, back, left, and right, and fire, but there are a couple of other fine-tuning commands and other ways to interact with the game that might make the game less difficult that have to be remembered. So for difficulty, because it lacks a lot of settings, because players are going to have to dig around for options, and it has a lot of key commands to remember, the game is earning a 2 out of 15. So then, what about lasting appeal? Lasting appeal, there is a fair amount of downloadable content available for it. The game does support mods, and there's a fairly well fleshed out skirmish mode, and it does seem like once players have had enough of the campaign, this is where they're going to get a fair amount of their enduring time with the game over anything else. So it's earning a 3 out of 15, the skirmish mode doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that one. So then, let's move on and to the final analysis. The game is earning an average score of 5 out of 15. It is a very challenging game. Gamepad we did find to be somewhat preferable over a keyboard and mouse just because it does put a lot of the key inputs right there, very accessible. And third-person view also seemed to be a lot more likely to produce mission success than cockpit view. The cockpit view obviously is more immersive, but it does make the game somewhat more difficult, or it did seem to make the game more difficult. On the other hand, where the game really stands out is the immersive combat. It might be a bit of an overused phrase, but it is sort of the Dark Souls of mech combat. Not that we like to do that sort of thing here, but it seems to fit in this particular instance, so we'll go ahead and use the term. So, that's really all I've got to say about MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. I do welcome suggestions, do the other YouTube things, and that's all from 7th Circle Gaming for today.